maybe 10 years ago, the state's Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, looking to upgrade and improve or give the opportunity for some gateway cities, let's call it old industrial communities, gateway cities, a way to improve some of their old mills that are being converted to modern uses. Maybe they're near a rail trail, maybe near a pond of sorts. And here in Easthampton, the Eastworks building, of course, is near the rail trail, near the old mill pond. So they put in a grant request for remaking, or actually figuratively spinning the mill around. So what that means is that this was the railroad siding side of the mill. The railroad's here, there were sidings here, unloading and loading dock doors, very active, and then it became the Eastworks building. So the railroad went away. These are probably in excess of 80 different small entrepreneurial businesses in here, and some ubiquitous things like the Registry of Motor Vehicles. They've got a grant to improve this former railroad siding side of the building to make it attractive. There's going to be gardens out here, outdoor seating, figuratively spinning the mill around to face the park, the beautiful pond over here, the ball fields and playground. We're going to go down here. This is actually the apex, or the junction, of two dead railroads. This is the north-south line. It goes all the way to New Haven. And then branching off, going to the right, is the Connecticut River Railroad's incursion into Easthampton. One of the last railroad wars in the Northeast is on this line. So that's what we're going to do today. This big mill complex is actually the last, or the only, discernible thing of the recession, the Great Recession from 2008. This was bought by maybe 2006, 2007 by some investors. It was their intention to restore this mill for condos and some mixed-use development, both offices and commercial retail. And then the recession took hold. They lost their funding, and of course the big mill complex is vacant, windowless, sitting here waiting for someone else to come along. It's on the market. There's sort of a plan to make apartments here, but no one has stepped up to do that, and just kind of sad that this is not finished. Just my 2 cents. This is done by Sam Ostroff, who's a local metal sculptor. He's the guy that did the big mural on the bridge in downtown Northampton over by Fitzwillies. He's a skilled and talented fellow. We're at the junction of two dead railroads. The north-south line, which is called by the sign up here, New Haven Northampton Canal, was built in place of the canal, which was 1830s. The railroad came through in the 1840s. And when you have a pre-Civil War built railroad, those were built to really high, tough design standards. These were bulletproof lines. Very rarely do you see a washout or any kind of infrastructure failure on a pre-Civil War era railroad. But off to the right here, this goes off to the Connecticut River. This was built specifically as a payback against the New Haven Railroad building in Holyoke. The Holyoke and Westfield Railroad was a way to bring the New Haven Railroad into Holyoke to compete against the Connecticut River Railroad, later the Boston and Maine Railroad. They were the only railroad in town, and then they made it onerous and extremely high rates for freight transfer, freight movement. And so they had to bring a second railroad in order to do that. The Connecticut River Railroad was so angered by that shortly after the build-out of the Holyoke and Westfield Railroad in Holyoke, this line was built into Easthampton. From the Connecticut River and the Connecticut River Railroad, this was brought in here to downtown Easthampton. It was payback, let's say. There was actually a little railroad yard just south of us here, right in the village center downtown of Easthampton, that was owned by the Connecticut River Railroad. And so we're going to see this. This line is built in the 1870s, and so this is a very flimsily built railroad. In fact, most of the rail trails in the United States today are built on post-Civil War era railroads. Most of the pre-Civil War railroads are still intact and still functioning. Most built after the war are gone. Very few places actually have a junction of a pre-Civil War and post-Civil War railroad today as a trail. This is only a small handful of places in the United States is like this. When this corridor was abandoned, it was back in the mid-90s, and by that time the utility had already come through and put this high voltage transmission lines in here. The utility put the poles right in the right-of-way of the railroad, and so when it became time to build the trail, who's going to pay for that mistake? They didn't know they were making a mistake, but that's what it turned out to be. So that trail took a really long time to get built. We're going to cross underneath Interstate 91 here. And you see this several places on Route 2 in Massachusetts where the railroad crossed Route 2 underneath Route 2 years ago, active as a railroad. The railroad went away, the highway was improved, and they got rid of the separated crossing and obliterated the railroad underneath. The railroad was still active, and they built 91 up here. And so you have a proper bridge for the trail to go underneath. Here's your substation, brings power into Easthampton. You can see there's poles everywhere around. It's a big junction point for electricity and a junction point for the former railroad. Up until probably the 1930s, there used to be a passenger railroad station over there. I remember it in the early 70s as a tavern called the Early Times Lounge. I actually saw the election returns of Nixon against McGovern. You can see the cars over there across the street today. They're being loaded up with the old steel rails, 39-foot sections there, that have been hoisted into those cars and taken away. Don't forget, all the engineers always sat on the right side of the locomotive as it was moving forward. And so the informational signage and signaling along the way would be for the engineer. It said yard limit, which meant that there was a special set of rules regarding train speeds in an area known as yard limit. The tracks were probably a little bit run down and not maintained well, and they didn't want you going fast, because if you derailed and you're going fast, then you're going to tip over and make a mess. One of the best things about Easthampton is how much the city has actually adopted and loved this trail. It's a great testament to what these projects do to communities, not only to improve neighborhoods, bring bicycle and walking back to places, but also to inspire people to do good things in their community, make the community more attractive. And Easthampton is just a perfect place that epitomizes that.